which is cell. Okay, so cells, we are on page number 18 from your textbook. Also keep your textbook open because we shall be studying both from the textbook as well as the presentation. Okay, my dears? Okay, so we have 12 attendees. Let me download the attendance and also remind me to download attendance at the end of the session again. So let's get started. Okay, so we are going to start the chapter 2, under which you will be studying about the basic structure of a cell, and you will also be comparing a plant cell with an animal cell. All right. So today we are going to study about the structure of the cell. So let's start with a Quranic verse, a verse from the Quran which is related to the cells. So Allah says in the Quran in chapter 21 verse 30, have those who disbelieved not considered that the heavens and the earth were a joint entity, and we separated them and made from water every living thing, then will they not believe? Okay, subhanallah. So in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states that He is the creator of each and everything on this earth, be it the basic unit of life, which is the cell, be it microscopic organisms, the bacteria, the unicellular organisms, to all the complex living things and all the non-living things as well, like the natural things in the earth. All of them have been made by Allah. Subhanallah. So let's start on this positive note. So the objectives for this topic are to learn about the difference of animal and a plant cell, difference between an animal and a plant cell, and to learn about organelles of a typical cell. Okay? So before we start, let's do a KWL. What do you see on the screen here? Which cell is it? Can you identify if it is a plant cell or an animal cell?
Yes. It's a plant cell.
It's a plant cell. Are you sure?
No.
Is it a plant cell or an animal cell?
Animal.
It's an animal cell.
Animal cell. How do you say that? Why do you say it is an animal cell?
Because there's a cell wall.
And there is no chlorophyll.
Chloroplast? Yes.
Yes.
There is no chloroplast, and you can see only a cell membrane but not a cell wall. You don't see a rigid cell wall as you see in a plant cell. You can see only a thin plasma membrane, which is the cell membrane. And of course, you can see the nucleus in the center of the cell, which is present only in animal cells. And you can see very small vacuoles, okay, and also in the cytoplasm. Okay, so all these are features of an animal cell, and of course the absence of chloroplast and the absence of a large vacuole shows that it is a animal cell. Very good, thank you so much. So let's move ahead and talk about the invention of the cell. Okay, so in 1665 it was Robert Hooke, a scientist, who discovered a cell. And how did he do that? He used a microscope to examine a thin slice of cork. What is cork? It is a dead plant cell. Okay, so he observed it under the microscope and he could see small blocks in it, as you can see in this picture here. Okay, so when he saw something which looked like small boxes, okay, then he called them cells. He named these small boxes as cells because they looked like the small rooms that monks lived in, called cells. During those times, the monks, they used to live in very small cells, very small rooms, which they called cells. So he used the same thing in order to describe these blocks, which we can see in the cross section of a cork cell, and he named them cells. Okay, so it was Robert Hooke who first discovered cells, and he gave them the name cells. Okay, so before we proceed with the presentation, let's check the information we have on your page number 18 about cells. Okay, so cells, they are from deep time, meaning cells were invented millions of years ago. Okay, or their origin is from millions of years ago. Why? Because there were only microscopic organisms which were first present on the earth, and of course they were made with one single cell. Okay, so if a long thin spike of limestone hanging down from the roof of a cave is called a stalactite, whose picture you can see on page number 18, what do you call a long thin drop of bacteria filled slime? Okay, so in this picture you can see it is the limestone, a spike of limestone which is hanging down from the roof of a cave. Okay, so this thing which is hanging down, it is known as the stalactite. Stalactite is the name given to it. But if you think there is a long thin drop of bacteria filled slime, what can it be called? So you can see the slime dropping from the wall of the cave. It is the snooties hanging from the roof of a cave. Okay, so it was caver Jim Pistorius who was a scientist who decided to call them snoties. Okay, so why the name snoties? Snoties are studied by biologists interested in organisms that can live in environments so strange that almost nothing else can live there. Okay, so these are basically the type of bacteria which can survive the extreme conditions. So bacteria, they are anaerobic and aerobic both. So a certain kind of anaerobic bacteria, they can survive even in the absence of oxygen, and they can survive very, very extreme conditions. They not only can survive very low temperatures like in polar regions, but also extreme temperatures cannot destroy them. For example, there are certain bacterial spores who will not get killed even if you're boiling them at very high temperatures. Okay, so there are bacteria which can live in such extreme conditions. Okay, so these organisms are called extremophils. Extremophils, the name why extremophiles or extremophils, because they can survive even the extreme conditions, which means they are lovers of extreme conditions. Okay, so the name given to such type of bacteria was snoties. The snoties are found in caves where the atmosphere contains large amounts of the smelly toxic gas hydrogen sulfide. So these are the dark caves where in the sunlight it doesn't reach. Okay, there is no sunlight at all. They are very dark and they are very deep inside the mountains. And in such caves there is poisonous or toxic gas which smells terrible, which is hydrogen sulfide. So the bacteria in the slimy threads, far from being poisoned by the gas, actually use it to make their food. Okay, so in such extreme conditions where no organism or no animal can survive, these bacteria can not only survive in such smelly hydrogen sulfide gas conditions, but they can also make their food from the gas. Do you think it's possible to make the food from this hydrogen sulfide gas? Girls? Do you think it's possible?
Yes.
How?
For humans, I don't think it's possible.
For bacteria, is it possible?
For bacteria, they can survive anything. So I think, yeah, they're possible.
Right. But I'm saying, how are they surviving? Because there is no oxygen at all. There is only hydrogen sulfide gas present. So these bacteria, we also studied when we were doing chapter 1 that a few bacteria are autotrophic and they can make their own food by the process of photosynthesis, right? But here we're talking about a cave wherein there is no sunlight at all. So for photosynthesis to take place, there should be sunlight. So how do these bacteria survive and from where do they get their food? The answer is they make their food by the process called chemosynthesis. Okay, so by the process of chemosynthesis, these bacteria, they make their food from this gas which is hydrogen sulfide. Okay, they can survive even without the presence of oxygen, and they can also survive even without the presence of sunlight. So how do they make their food? Is by the process of chemosynthesis, wherein they can make their food from this hydrogen sulfide gas. Okay, so in the middle of the threads there is virtually no oxygen, yet some kinds of bacteria live even here. So similar conditions, a lot of hydrogen sulfide, almost no oxygen were found in the Earth's very early atmosphere more than 3.5 billion years ago. And this is probably when these when these extremophile bacteria first evolved. Okay, so in such extreme conditions, also such type of bacteria, they evolved about 3.5 billion years ago. Okay, and at that time, the cells of all organisms were much less complex than those of plants and animals, which did not appear on Earth until around 2 billion years ago. Okay, so the first organisms which evolved on the planet Earth were bacteria, which evolved about 3.5 million years ago. After that, slowly plants and animals, they evolved about 1.5 billion years ago after the bacteria evolved. Okay, so they had no nucleus, the cells of these bacteria. For example, they had no nucleus, yet bacteria made up of these seemingly simple cells are clearly very successful. So if they have managed to survive almost unchanged through such an unimaginably long period of time. Okay, so this example, it shows that bacteria, they can survive any extreme conditions, and it was actually bacteria which were present on the planet Earth about millions and millions of years ago, and after that the other organisms, they started evolving, maybe all the other types of plants and animals and all of them from that single bacterial cell. Okay, so this is about the evolution of bacteria. Now quickly let's move on to page number 19 and discuss about the cell structure. So on your screen here you can see the picture of an animal cell and a plant cell, and you can see that animal and plant cells, they come in different shapes and sizes, but they all have three basic features. So there are three basic similarities between an animal cell and a plant cell. What are those three similarities or features? Can someone read out from the screen?
Miss, can I read?
Yeah, sure.
Cell membrane, cytoplasm, and nucleus.
Excellent. So cell membrane, cytoplasm, and the nucleus are present in both animal cell and plant cell. Though plant cells have some extra features that make them different to animal cells. So we are going to study in detail the structure of an animal cell and a plant cell. Okay, so this is a section through a liver cell, which is an animal cell, which you can see in this picture here. Okay, so you can see a clear nucleus which is present in the center of the cell. You can see a cell membrane which controls what enters and leaves the cell. So what do you call such membrane which controls what enters and leaves the cell? Does it allow each and everything to enter the cell membrane?
No, not everything.
Yeah, not everything. It allows the exchange of gases and also sometimes the exchange of other materials. So it allows only a few things to enter and leave the cell. So such a type of membrane, it is known as partially permeable or semi-permeable membrane, okay, which lines the animal cell. Then, you can see the jelly-like substance which surrounds the nucleus, which is known as cytoplasm. It is the place where various chemical and metabolic reactions occur, and of course the DNA is present in the nucleus, the DNA containing the genetic material, or it contains the coded instructions to make proteins. Then the nucleus, it contains the DNA, so it controls the cell. Okay, so this is the basic structure of an animal cell. It is of a liver cell, which you can see here, wherein you can see a cell membrane, cytoplasm, nucleus, and DNA, which is present inside the nucleus. Now, this on the screen you can see right now is the structure of a plant cell. It is a palisade cell of a leaf. Okay, so it is the cell name is palisade. It is a typical cell which is present in the leaf of the plants. So what can you observe in this cell? Do you see the nucleus?
Yes.
Where is it present?
After the cell membrane.
Yeah. Unlike the animal cell, it is not present in the center of the cell, but it is present in one corner adjacent to the cell membrane, right? And you can clearly see a very large sap vacuole Okay, and you can see a rigid cell wall or very strong cell wall which is made up of cellulose, which is the outer lining of the cell membrane. Okay, there is a cell membrane present and it is lined outside by a cellulose cell wall. And you can also see these green chloroplasts. Okay, so these are the distinguishing features between an animal cell and a plant cell. So if it is a plant cell, you can see a rigid cellulose cell wall. You can see the nucleus present in one corner adjacent to the cell membrane. Okay, of course there is cytoplasm, and of course there are organelles present in the plant cell as well, but you can clearly see the presence of chloroplast, which is not present in an animal cell, and you can also see very large sap vacuoles which are present in plant leaf cells, which are absent in animal cells. In animal cells, the vacuoles are really small, as you can see here. Okay, so now you know the clear difference between a plant cell and an animal cell, my dears. So what is the difference between a plant cell and animal cell? Can you please tell me? Can someone please tell me?
Can I say?
Yeah, sure.
In the plant cell, the nucleus isn't in the middle like the animal cell.
Yeah. Then?
And the cell wall is not present in the animal cell.
Very good. Why do we listen to this? Do you hear that sound? Dun, dun? Okay, I don't know. Alright, go ahead, my dear.
Someone is going and coming, going and coming.
Okay, why is it happening? Something wrong with the teams? I can see 23 participants. Is everybody present today? Anyone absent? Let me download the attendance. Okay, dear, go ahead. So there is a presence of a cell wall, cellulose cell wall, and there is also presence of chloroplast and very large sap vacuole, which are the distinguishing features between an animal cell and a plant cell. Right, my dear?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much, my dear. So let's also check the information we have on your page number 19 in the textbook. Now, all organisms are made up of cells, and cells are very small, so large organisms contain millions of cells. Some organisms are unicellular, like all the monerans, which means that they are made up of just a single cell. Bacteria, can you give me some examples of the single-celled organisms or unicellular organisms?
Miss, can I?
Yeah, sure.
Protozoa and bacteria.
Bacteria. But protozoa, is it prokaryotic or eukaryotic?
Okay. Miss, I have an answer.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Fungi, they're sometimes, they're usually multicellular, but like, they can be like unicellular.
Yeah, except for yeast. Yeast is the only fungi which is unicellular, right? So all the bacteria and archaebacteria, archaea, and yeast are the only unicellular organisms, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's also discuss about the microscopes from your page number 19. I'm sure all of you must have seen a light microscope which is present in our biology lab. Okay, so that is the microscope which is normally used in the school labs, but it has a magnification which is very less compared to an electron microscope. Okay, so to see cells clearly, you need to use a microscope. The kind of microscope used in a school laboratory is called a light microscope because it shines light through the piece of animal or plant you are looking at. So it is known as a light microscope. Why? Because the magnification, the source of magnification is light in a light microscope. It uses light in order to reflect the cell which you're observing, whether it is a plant cell or an animal cell, whatever thing you're looking at. So it uses glass lenses to magnify and focus the image. I'm sure you must have used the lens and how to focus and all in the laboratory, right? So a very good light microscope can magnify about 1500 times so that all structures can be seen. So when you're looking at something in a microscope, you can see it 1500 times bigger in size. That means a light microscope, it can magnify 1500 times. Okay, so the photomicrographs of plant and animal cells are shown in your figure 2.5 and 2.6. So if you turn your page, you can see the photomicrograph. What is the meaning of photomicrograph?
The image produced by a light microscope.
Yes, very good. The picture taken or the image produced by a light microscope is known as a photomicrograph. So you can see these figures 2.5 and 2.6. Now 2.5 is a picture taken of a plant cell using a light microscope. So you can see the green structures which are the chloroplasts. And even if it does not have any chloroplasts, you can still identify a plant cell because it has a cell wall around it. Okay, so this is how the plant cell looks like in a light microscope. And beneath that you can see an animal cell. The cells from tracheae, which is the windpipe of a mammal, are seen through a light microscope. So you can see these cells, they are from the tracheae. That is the windpipe in your neck. Okay, so these are those cells, and you can see there is no clear or rigid cell wall. So you can see a thin cell membrane, a cytoplasm, and also the nucleus. Okay, so this is how the cells, both an animal and plant cell, look like when you're looking through a light microscope. Okay, so to see even smaller things inside the cell, an electron microscope is used. So if you want to see more detailed structure of a cell, more detailed organelles and what are present inside the organelles and how does the diffusion osmosis takes place, in order to find out all these minute details, you need to use a microscope of more magnification. Okay, so that electron microscope is a microscope which is of more magnification. It uses a beam of electrons instead of light as a source of magnification, and it can magnify up to 5 lakh times. Okay, so there is a lot of difference between a picture which is taken by using a light microscope and a picture taken by using an electron microscope. Why? Because electron microscope, it magnifies up to 5 lakh times compared to the 1500 times which the light microscope magnifies. So of course a picture taken with the electron microscope is more detailed. It will give a detailed picture of all the organelles, and it is the microscope which is used by the various scientists and biologists in their labs in order to discover and do various experiments. Okay, you can see the picture of the electron microscope in your picture on page number 19. You can see how complicated the electron microscope is. You can also see the picture of a light microscope of your eye, and also a hand lens which can magnify about 10 times. Okay, and you can see the picture taken by using a light microscope of an animal cell. Okay. So this means that a lot more detail can be seen inside a cell. We can see many structures more clearly, and also some structures that could not be seen at all with the light microscope can be seen by using an electron microscope. Clear, ladies? Any doubts so far?
I understand.
Okay. Okay, so before we move ahead, there are question numbers 2.1 and 2.2, which is your homework on page number 19. Okay, so please complete these questions 2.1 and 2.2 as homework. Now let's move on to page number 20, and also from your presentation. Now we all know the levels of organization. I'm sure you must have read from your grade 5 that cell is the basic unit of life, right? And all these cells, they come together to form a tissue. Maybe tissue in the skin, tissue in the liver, right? And these tissues, they come together to form an organ. The various organs in plants and animals, okay? The main organs in plants would be roots, stem, flower, fruit, leaf, etc. And the main organs in human body would be heart, brain, stomach, liver, etc. Okay, so these organs, again, they come together to form an organ system, right? For example, the various organs in the circulatory system are heart, blood vessels, and blood. The main organs in the respiratory system are, it starts from the nose, and then your windpipe, the tracheae, which leads into the lungs, and the trachea, it opens into the bronchioles and bronchi. The bronchi, they divide into many bronchioles and alveoli. So all these are structures of the respiratory system. Similarly, the stomach, the large and small intestines, all these are the organs of the digestive system, right? So these are the organ systems, and obviously all these organ systems, they need to work in homeostasis for an organism to function, right? So these are the levels from the basic to the complex level. So which is the first level of organization, the basic level?
Cells,
Cells, they come together to form
tissues,
and tissues, all of them, they come together to form an
organ,
and organs, they come together to form an
organ system.
And finally organ systems, they form an organism. Okay, so these are the living levels or the levels of organization. Now let's check the cell size and types. So on your screen you can see a typical animal cell, a plant cell, and also a bacterial cell. So cells, the basic units of organisms, they can only be observed under the microscope, as we just discussed right now. So there are three basic type of cells, which is an animal cell, which differs from plant cell, and also a prokaryotic bacterial cell. Okay. So although all living things are made up of cells, organisms may be unicellular or multicellular. Now we all know what are unicellular organisms, which are composed of only one cell. Examples being?
Viruses.
Bacteria, yeast.
Yeast, bacteria, archaebacteria, all these are examples of unicellular organisms. And multicellular, composed of many cells that may organize into tissues. So these are the difference between unicellular and multicellular. Now what is the difference between a prokaryotic cell and a eukaryotic cell? Who's going to tell me?
Oh, Thomas.
What is the difference between a prokaryotic cell and a eukaryotic cell?
One of them is I'm guessing, Wallahi, miss.
We discussed about
One
this
of
in
them has a
chapter 1.
nucleus and the other does not have a nucleus. So eukaryotes have the eukaryotes has a nucleus.
Yes.
And the other one is the prokaryotes, does not have a nucleus.
Yeah, though the nucleus is not present, the genetic material is loosely present in the cytoplasm in the prokaryotes, right? And what is the difference? I'm talking about the difference between a prokaryotic cell and a eukaryotic cell. You just now mentioned a very good difference, because nucleus is present in a eukaryotic cell, whereas it is not present in a prokaryotic cell.
Cell membrane.
Cell membrane. Cell membrane is present in both prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells, and the membrane-bound organelles, they are not present in a prokaryotic cell, whereas they are present in the eukaryotic cell.
Okay.
Right? And of course, the cytoplasm is present in both prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. So you can see on your screen the eukaryotic cell. This is a typical eukaryotic cell structure. It contains three basic cell structures, which are the nucleus, the cell membrane, and cytoplasm, with various membrane-bound organelles which are present in the cytoplasm. Okay? So there are again two main types of eukaryotic cells are, of course, the plant cell and the animal cell. Both of them are eukaryotic, but there is difference between a plant cell and an animal cell. Now let's discuss about the various organelles which are present in the cell. Okay. So what are actually organelles? How do you define organelles? They are very, very small, meaning they are microscopic, and they perform various functions for a cell. So we are talking about the various organelles like the nucleus, vacuoles, cytoplasm, chloroplast, mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, ribosome. So we are going to talk about in detail about the various functions of these cell organelles. Where are all of these organelles present?
Cytoplasm.
Excellent. They are present in the cytoplasm, and they may or may not be membrane bound, as we just now discussed in a prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. In eukaryotic cells, all the organelles, they are membrane bound, whereas they are not membrane bound in a prokaryotic cell. Okay, so you can see all the organelles of a typical animal cell. Can someone please label or read out all the organelles of an animal cell from here, from this picture on the screen? Go ahead.
Can I miss go?
Sure, sure.
Animal cell. Ribosome attached. Ribosome free. Cell membrane. Miss, what's this?
Mitochondrion. Mitochondrion.
Smooth endoplasm. Plasmic.
Reticulum.
Reticulum. Centrolus.
Centrioles.
Centrioles. Nucleus. Nucleus. Nucleus.
Nucleolus. Yeah.
Nuclear. Nival.
Nuclear envelope.
Rough endoplasm. Reticulum.
Yeah. Yeah. And Golgi apparatus. Thank you so much, my dear. So you can see the various organelles which are present in an animal cell are nucleus and nucleolus, which you can see in the center of the cell, which is lined by a nuclear envelope. You can see both the rough and smooth endoplasmic reticulum. You will know the difference when we are talking about it in detail. Then you can see the centrioles, the ribosomes, which are attached and free, and also you can see the mitochondria, which is the energy house of the cell, and also the Golgi apparatus. Okay, so these are the various organelles which are present in a typical animal cell.
When you go back, I want to tell you something about it.
Sure.
You know, in the nucleus, there is something in the middle, and it's not labeled.
What? This is the nucleus. This one you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, this is the nuclear membrane outside, and the center is the nucleus. It is surrounded by nucleolus.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So these are the typical organelles of a plant cell. Can someone else read them out, please?
Yes, can I read?
Yes.
Okay. Chloroplast, mitochondria, cytoplasm, rough endoplasmic reticulum, nucleus, nucleolus, a nuclear envelope, cell wall, smooth endoplasm reticulum, ribosomes, Golgi apparatus, peroxisomes, plasma membrane.
Very excellent. So you can clearly see the presence of a very rigid cell wall in this plant cell, which is not present or absent in an animal cell. And you can also see the nucleus. It is present near the cell wall over here, whereas it is present in the center in an animal cell. You can clearly see the presence of chloroplasts in the plant cell, which are absent in an animal cell. And you can see a very big sized vacuole which is present in a plant cell, and of course it is present in the vacuoles which are present in animal cell are very small. Apart from that, the structures which are present in plant cell and absent in an animal cell are those peroxisomes. Okay. And that's it. You can see the plasma membrane, and it is lined by an outer cell wall. Apart from these, the nucleus, nucleolus, nuclear envelope, all these are present even in animal cell. And also the mitochondria, the smooth and the rough endoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi apparatus. These are the organelles which are present both in an animal cell and a plant cell. Okay, so except for certain distinguishing features, the organelles which are present in the cytoplasm are almost the same for a plant cell and an animal cell. Now let's talk about each and every organelle. Okay, so let's come back to your textbook on page number 20. You can also see a picture of a typical plant cell on this on your page number 20. It is a palisade mesophyll cell, which is a cell which is present in the leaf. And you can see this is a picture taken with a light microscope, wherein you can see a cell wall which is surrounding the cell membrane. You can see the clear green colored chloroplast. You can see the nucleus present against the cell wall. You can see it is lined by a nuclear envelope. And you can see the organelles which are present in the cytoplasm, like the chloroplast. And you can see also the starch grain inside the chloroplast, and you can see the big large vacuoles containing the cell sap. Okay, so this is how a plant cell looks like when you're taking a picture by using a light microscope. Now let's discuss in detail about each and every organelle of a cell, starting with a cell membrane. Okay, so whatever sort of animal or plant they come from, all cells, they have a cell membrane. So we've seen that both an animal cell and a plant cell, they contain a cell membrane, right? So sometimes called the cell surface membrane. It is also known as cell surface membrane or cell membrane. And it is around the outside. Inside the cell membrane is a jelly-like substance called cytoplasm. We all know that, in which are found many small structures called organelles. So the most obvious of these organelles is usually the nucleus. In a plant cell, it is very difficult to see because it is right against the cell wall. Okay, so the most important or obvious organelle in both the plant cell and the animal cells is of course the nucleus. But the placement, if it is an animal cell, it is present right in the center. If it is a plant cell, it is present against the cell wall. It is very difficult to see because it is right against the cell wall in a plant cell. The cell membrane is a very thin layer of protein and fat. It is very important to the cell because it controls what goes in and out of it. As I told you, it is normally known as a semi-permeable or a partially permeable membrane because it controls what goes in and out of the cell, which means that it will let some substances through but not others, or it will not allow everything to pass in and move out, but it will allow only a few substances. Okay, so this is about the cell membrane. You can see the cell membrane on your screen here. It is the cell or plasma membrane. Okay, it is composed of a double layer of phospholipids and proteins. So what is the cell membrane made up of, girls? What is it made up of, the cell membrane?
Protein and fat.
Composed of a double layer of
double layer of phospholipids, which is actually the fats and the proteins. Okay, so if there is a question, you can either answer it by saying the cell membrane is made up of protein and fat or phospholipids and proteins. Okay, and it surrounds outside of all cells. It controls what enters or leaves the cells, but that is why the name selectively permeable has been given to it. So you can see this is how the cell membrane looks like. Okay, so this is the cell membrane, the double layered layer made up of proteins and also lipids. You can see this is the lipid bilayer, and you can see the proteins which are embedded in the lipid layer. Okay, so this is how it looks like, and this is the inside of the cell, which is the cytoplasm, which is present inside the cell. So this is the outside of a cell, which is the structure of a cell membrane. So this is how the cell membrane in plants looks like. It lines the cell wall. Okay, so you can see the cell membrane in plants. It lies immediately against the cell wall. That is, the outer layer is the cell wall, which you can see in a plant cell, and it is lined by a cell membrane. So if it is a plant cell, the second layer which you can see is the cell membrane. It pushes out against the cell wall to maintain cell shape. So not only the cell wall, but even the cell membrane, both of them, they give a very rigid shape to a plant cell. Okay, so this is how the cell membrane, it is present in an animal cell, and this is how the cell membrane, it is present in a plant cell. Clear, ladies?
Yes.
Okay, my dear, so the time is up. So we shall discuss about the rest of the organelles in our next lesson. Okay, so your homework will be to complete the questions you have on page number 19. Okay, and also if you want to make any very good interactive videos explaining about the differences between a plant cell and an animal cell, talking about the various organelles, you can do that, the girls who are interested. Any doubts?
Thank you, Miss.
Okay, you're most welcome. Bye bye. You have a great day ahead.